Brought to you by Void Interactive. SWAT teams save lives. That is ultimately why they exist. In Ready or Not, you aren't generally expected to extend life-saving services to those who pose a direct lethal threat to you or your team. But for those operators who want a real challenge, that's exactly what you'll need to do. And for that, you'll need some less lethal options to choose from. There are a number of less lethal options in Ready or Not. Each one serves a different purpose, and to get the coveted S rank, you'll need to know what scenarios call for which options. But why do SWAT officers in real life use less lethal options at all? Well, it's important to remember that SWAT officers are still police officers, and primarily deal with civilians. Not every situation requires lethal force, and even individuals who pose a deadly threat can be de-escalated and apprehended without lethal force being used. In Ready or Not, you'll have many scenarios where lethal force is discouraged. Picking the right option to use is the key to surviving and bringing order to chaos. If you've played the game, you've been in this situation before. An unarmed civilian is verbally resisting and refusing to comply. The first and simplest solution is to hit them. This is the fastest way to gain compliance over someone resisting, useful when you're storming a room and need to get someone out of the way quickly. The obvious risk is that this puts you up close to the individual. If they decide to hit back or pull a knife, you'll be in trouble. Getting punched to death is not a good way to go. For that reason, pepper spray is another option. Pepper spray contains chemicals that causes intense burning to the eyes, leading to pain and temporary blindness. In real life, pepper spray is used on individuals who appear to be in a combative state, but are not being physically aggressive. Pepper spray is used as a method of stopping a fight before it begins. It is not effective against those who are committed to fighting. After all, you can still shoot while blind. In Ready or Not, pepper spray is fairly true to real life. Against someone who is actively trying to fight you, it's useless. But against someone who is non-compliant but not combative, pepper spray is a very effective tool. And best of all, it'll keep you safe. Moving on to the next less lethal weapon, we have the taser. But before we move on, I want to define the term less lethal. A less lethal device is something not intended to cause serious bodily harm or death, but can if used improperly. And the taser certainly falls into that category. Taser is actually the name of a branch within the broader company Axon Enterprise, a company founded in 1993 that develops various products for first responders, including, of course, tasers. The taser model in Ready or Not is the X2 Defender, but for convenience sake, I'm just gonna call it a taser. A taser works by firing two small darts that attach to the suspect. Once these darts connect, an electrical current is sent from the taser and goes through the suspect, causing intense pain and rendering them unable to move. If used properly, this pain is temporary. But while they've been adopted by many law enforcement agencies, tasers do have problems. The taser relies on both darts attaching to the target. If either dart cannot make a connection, the circuit will not complete, and the desired effect will not happen. Anecdotally, this is a fairly common occurrence in real life, to the point where many use of force guidance documents advise using tasers in conjunction with lethal force, in the event that the taser fails to connect. On the other end of the spectrum, tasers can cause serious injury and death. If used for too long, or if individuals have pre-existing conditions, It is possible to inadvertently kill someone. For these reasons, tasers are not a substitute for lethal force, nor are they a default choice for a less lethal option. In Ready or Not, the taser fills a similar role. While you can't accidentally kill someone with the taser in Ready or Not, you will be penalized for using it improperly. And just like in real life, sometimes the taser just doesn't work. But when you do land the barbs, it will instantly stun whoever it hits. If you encounter someone, whether it be an armed suspect who is refusing to drop their weapon, or someone who insists on using TikTok in an active crime scene, a taser will quickly convince them to comply. It's a much better option than repeatedly yelling at them and hoping they cooperate. And as an added bonus, they won't wander away while being tased, making them much easier to apprehend. Tasers in Ready or Not are essential for one specific map. On the map Neon Tomb, suicide bombers will do anything to get close to you and blow themselves up. Shooting them with any firearm will cause them to instantly explode, and they obviously won't respond to verbal commands. But a taser will stun the bomber without issue, allowing you to arrest him without killing him. One interesting glitch with the taser is that if you melee someone with it, they will act as if they've been tased rather than hit. It's one of the fastest ways to gain compliance over someone, though it is risky since you have to be in melee range. Finally, one of the best things about the taser is that you only need to sacrifice one magazine slot for it. Giving up one mag for a taser is absolutely worth it. You can still use your primary, secondary, and equipment of choice. For most of my runs, whether non-lethal or not, it's a permanent part of my loadout. Moving on, we have the Pepperball launchers. Pepperball is the name of the company that produces less lethal weapons for law enforcement, military, and civilians. Founded in 1996, their goal was to make a less lethal solution that could be used in place of lethal force if the situation allowed for it. What they produce are essentially paintball guns that are designed to fire a proprietary projectile, capable of incapacitating an individual without causing permanent injury or death. Pepperball actually makes a number of different projectiles that can be fired out of their launchers. Their most popular one is the Pepperball Live Round. This is a projectile composed of PAVA pepper powder, which will incapacitate a target whether on direct impact or saturating an area with the powder. Pepperball launchers are ideally used against someone who is actively resisting, or an unarmed individual who intends to do harm. They are not intended to be used against dangerous suspects with weapons. But in Ready or Not, the Pepperball launchers are intended to be used against everyone. From gangsters to terrorists, the Pepperball works against all suspects, mostly. There are some who wear gas masks, and against these suspects, you'll have a more difficult time taking them down. Additionally, just like in real life, Pepperballs have varying effects depending on the individual. Some are incapacitated instantly, while others will be more resilient. But for all its downsides, the Pepperball launchers do have a number of benefits. Out of all the less lethal options, Pepperball launchers are the fastest to reload. And since the projectiles burst into small clouds, precise aim isn't needed. Just shoot in the general vicinity of a suspect and they'll surrender. This makes the Pepperball launcher extremely useful in one specific situation. When a suspect takes a civilian as a hostage, there's no need for a precise and difficult headshot. Just shoot at their elbow, and the suspect will drop the hostage. The Pepperball launchers aren't always the most effective, but they are the safest. It's impossible to kill someone with them in Ready or Not. And before this update, that's all I would have said about them. However, with the latest update, the Pepperball TRPL pistol has been added to the game. On its own, it's fairly unremarkable. It holds 6 rounds, less ammo than the rifle or submachine gun variants, and is unable to mount an optic. But when you combine the pistol with a shield, it becomes one of the best ways to complete missions without killing anyone. Being able to block incoming fire is an incredible advantage, especially given that Pepperballs don't always immediately take effect. And the best part is that you can now give your AI teammates using shields this pistol. Finally, you won't have a trigger-happy teammate dome someone and lose your precious S rank. The Pepperball pistol is a must-bring for all S rank attempts. And as for the rest of the launchers, they're pretty good as well. If you want to unlock all the cosmetics, or prove that you can subdue a terrorist cell without killing any of them, you'll be using the Pepperball launchers a lot. The alternative to the Pepperball launcher in Ready or Not is the Beanbag shotgun. In real life, specific beanbag shotguns do not exist. Beanbag rounds can be fired out of any 12-gauge pump shotgun. Beanbag shotgun shells are composed of a small fabric pillow filled with lead shot. The shells themselves are loaded with much less gunpowder than normal lethal shotgun shells. Because of this, beanbag rounds cannot cycle in semi-auto shotguns. They only work in a pump shotgun. Though technically, any non-semi-auto shotgun would work. If you've ever fired a beanbag round out of a double barrel or lever shotgun, let me know. This results in a lead shot-filled pillow being fired at about 200 to 300 feet per second. A less lethal projectile that generally won't kill, but will certainly hurt a lot. Specifically, beanbag rounds are meant to immobilize a suspect temporarily through pain. But despite being intended to be a less lethal option, there are a number of recorded instances of beanbag rounds causing serious injury or death. A beanbag round can crack a rib, break a neck, or worse. Because of this, officers are usually trained to fire beanbag rounds at extremities. But in spite of these risks, law enforcement agencies around the world use beanbag rounds as a less lethal option. Given its increased incapacitation potential, beanbag rounds can be used against suspects with edged weapons, something that isn't recommended for most other less lethal options. In Ready or Not, beanbag rounds are incredibly useful. While suspects can shrug off pepperball rounds, everyone will be instantly incapacitated by a beanbag round. Given that it's a pump shotgun, it's more difficult to use compared to a semi-auto pepperball launcher. But when you hit someone with a beanbag round, they will give up instantly. This is especially important for suspects who would otherwise wander away to a better position. On maps like Elephant, the beanbag shotgun is very useful at taking down suspects and keeping them there. Just make sure to aim at center mass. If you hit someone in the head, you will kill them. Choosing between the beanbag shotgun or pepperball launcher is a question of preference. Want to cover an area quickly without need for precision shots? Go for the pepperball launchers. Want to ensure a suspect will give up? Choose the beanbag shotgun. One of the more interesting, less lethal options is the 40mm grenade launcher. On the face of it, it makes no sense for SWAT teams to utilize grenade launchers. These devices typically fire a high explosive projectile, and are used to great effect by militaries around the world. For obvious reasons, explosive projectiles do not have a place in law enforcement. However, since their inception, different types of 40mm projectiles have been developed for the grenade launchers. This includes less lethal projectiles like gas grenades and flashbangs. With a grenade launcher, these projectiles can launch much further than can be thrown by hand. This is a huge benefit. Being able to stay further away from a target while still being able to effectively fire a projectile at them is a crucial advantage. In fact, by reading after-action reports from SWAT teams and equivalents around the world, it becomes apparent that the 40mm grenade launcher is one of the most used pieces of equipment by such units. In Ready or Not, the grenade launcher featured is the M320. Its origin, like many weapons, began as a US Army request. Their intention was to replace the aging M203 grenade launcher. The design that won the competition was by renowned German firearms company Heckler & Koch. It had a built-in foregrip, had the capability of being mounted on a rifle or being used as a standalone launcher, and had a new sighting system that could be used in conjunction with a rifle optic. The M320 has been adopted around the world by militaries and law enforcement agencies alike. Some groups have developed electronic sighting systems for the launcher, but in Ready or Not, you'll be using the standard leaf sights. You have 3 projectile options: flashes, smokes, or stingers. They mirror the effects of their hand-thrown counterparts, the difference of course being that you can fire them much further than throwing them by hand. This becomes especially useful when you need to send a grenade across a large room to subdue a suspect. And of course, having the leaf sights means you can actually aim your grenade, instead of having to eyeball it when throwing it by hand. It's quite a useful tool for flushing out barricaded suspects that would otherwise be very risky to deal with. But there are a couple drawbacks to the M320. The launcher only holds 1 grenade, and needs to be reloaded after every shot. And while teammates can cover you if this happens, it's often the case that the person using the launcher is at a weird angle that only he can cover. The other drawback is that the grenade launcher takes up the equipment slot. And while it's useful enough to justify that slot, there are other equipment choices that are often mandatory, like the mirror gun or shield. Before this update, the only option was to work around the downsides of the M320, but with the console release, there is a new solution. The M32A1 is a 40mm grenade launcher that can hold 6 grenades. Developed and produced by the South American company Milcor, the M32A1 can rapidly fire all 6 of its grenades before having to be reloaded. The M32 name is a US Marine designation. The original name of the weapon is the Milcor Multiple Grenade Launcher, or MGL. The origin of the MGL launcher is quite interesting. Weapon designer Andres Peak happened to be watching the movie Dogs of War, where Christopher Walken's character used the Manville projectile launcher, a weapon that has a 24-round cylinder. Upon seeing this, he immediately saw the potential for a multi-shot grenade launcher, having previously designed a single-shot launcher for the South African police, and thus, the MGL was born. It was first adopted by the South African military, then in small numbers with US SOCOM and some other countries, and finally in larger numbers with the US Marines in the early 2000s, where it was dubbed the M32. In other words, the grenade launcher has seen widespread use. Aside from its 6-shot capacity, the M32A1 has some other features not previously seen on a grenade launcher. It comes equipped with an optical sight, enabling a user to be more precise when firing grenades. Rails at the front allow for a user to attach whatever they'd like, and the adjustable stock allows the operator to fire the weapon comfortably at weird angles. In Ready or Not, the M32A1 launcher is true to its real-life counterpart. 6 rounds of flash or tear gas on tap is very useful for when you need to clear out a room with multiple suspects, and when you need to reload, it's a fairly quick process. The optic also makes tricky shots easier for when you need to precisely put a grenade somewhere without hurting bystanders. The M32A1 takes up the primary weapon slot, which frees up your equipment slot for other things. While it may sound risky to have a launcher with no other primary weapon, remember that you can now take a pepperball launcher as a secondary. Or, if you want to be a dedicated grenadier, you can take both a M32A1 and a M320 launcher, giving you more grenades than you ever need. In most games, the M32A1 is portrayed as a devastating tool of destruction, but in Ready or Not, it is the ultimate lifesaver. Being able to de-escalate a dangerous situation has never been easier.
I've also had word from our contact at FISA that they want Adams alive and well.
So, those are all the less lethal options in Ready or Not. They were already great, but with the addition of the pepperball pistol and the M32A1 launcher, they've become even better. If you haven't already, now is a great time to take these new toys, get your S ranks, and unlock all the cosmetics. Because at the end of the day, does anything even matter if you don't look cool? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out my previous video on the Weapons of the Dark Waters DLC. And thank you again to Void for sponsoring this video.